Hello and welcome once again to The Old Man Speaks. I am Joshua the Old Man, and I come to you 3 times a week for 5 minutes and talk about whatever you want me to talk about. Today's topic comes from Tetiana Mumba Foxberg, and she wants to know, what did you like about raising kids? Well, I don't know that I raised anything, but in one word, I would say discovery. We go through a lifetime of fascination with new things, and when you're a child, everything is new. So you may have an elaborate plan to take your kids somewhere, but let me tell you that the thing they're going to remember is the transportation, particularly if there's a train or a bus or a rental car or an airplane for sure. I can remember the first time I took my son, my oldest son, on a long trip. We went to Arizona via the airplane, but when we got there, we had a rental car, and it was one of these Japanese rental cars with all the gadgets on it. And my son, to this day, loves gadgets. So he starts pressing all the buttons. I'm going down the fast road at like 70, 75 miles an hour. And all of a sudden, the top opens up and there's wind and noise. And I yell, "Stop pressing the buttons, close the roof." In my early years, I was never a traveler. A matter of fact, until my mid 30s, I had never been out of the mid Atlantic. The most I had ever done was a day trip up to New York City to see relatives or maybe Northern Virginia, but that's it. In 1994, had a particularly difficult year, and my better half says to me, go someplace, any place for 3 days, 4 days, whatever you can do just to get out of here. So I chose Scottsdale, Arizona. And back then, it was much different than it is now. Back then, it actually had a Western feel to it, and you felt like you were in the desert. Now you go and you could be in Glen Burnie, Maryland. It's all pavement, Walmart, what have you. So the first night I go out and there's a bar there. So I say, let's see what a Western bar looks like. And I went in. It was like right out of the movies. They had the big moose heads on the wall, the billiard tables in back of the room, long wooden bar, a huge dance floor, and a great band up on the bandstand. And people were dancing. A lot of open carry there. Saw lots of guns and holsters, lots of really nice hats. And I sit down at the bar, order a beer, and next to me is a guy who's been drinking a little too much. And out on the dance floor comes this guy who looks like he ate nails for breakfast, leather skin, an old worn hat, and a woman who was very beautiful but looked very tough. And he starts making comments about this woman, and each comment is getting louder and louder. Now, there's not much of a story for me here because I had never been in a place like this before. But I saw this in movies and I didn't want to be here at the end of this scene, so I quietly left. But the funny thing is that next year, when I brought my son there, that's the place that he wanted to hang out at. I said, no. So it came time for me to plan my first day in Arizona, and I figured, oh, I'd like to see the Painted Desert. So I got out my map, and it was, oh, this far. This is not a good way to tell how far something is. I figured it was a couple of hours. It turned out to be 5 hours each way, going up these thin mountain roads. Another thing you don't want to do is put sunscreen on your forehead because when you sweat, it will go down into your eyes and burn at the most inopportune times, like when you're going up a thin mountain road. Thank God I made it there and back, and the next day I chose something a lot calmer. I went toward Tucson. To make a long story short, I love Tucson, and I remember back in 1994 calling my better half up and saying, "This is a lovely place. I'd love to live here someday." Never expected that I would have children, grandchild, all sorts of friends, and be spending significant amounts of time in Tucson. Well, I'm back here in Baltimore, kind of quarantined, but when this thing is all over, I'll probably go and spend more time in Tucson, God willing. It's funny how things go through the years and end up in places that you never would expect. Until next time, Josh saying, take care of yourself. Talk to you in a couple of days. Be well.